Nigeria's democracy has survived more than 2 decades of multi-party politics under a seamless transition from 1999 to date, and the pursuit for a well-developed and inclusive system of government remains a genuine cause for the advancement of democracy in the country. It is 6 years down the line since the assumption of office of the Buhari administration in 2015, and the journey has been full of gains and challenges, from the economy to politics, health to security, most of which are influenced by contemporary realities. Despite the challenges, the administration, to a large extent, has fulfilled the desire of revamping the economy, delivering of critical infrastructure, and the fight against corruption, which are still top on the agenda of the administration. It has made enormous efforts in diversifying the economy through a revamp of the agriculture and other non-oil income generating sectors as priority in its new drive to improve revenue and meet the nation's growing demands in the quest to catch up with the Committee of Nations on Sustainable Development that has impacted the lives of Nigerians positively. It's been 6 eventful years, and the government, not resting on its oars, has initiated laudable programs and policies in the areas of social investment network, improved power supply and rail transportation, including security and completion of inherited projects by successive administrations on an unstable crude oil benchmark and 6 budget cycles, but it is not yet uhuru, as there is still more to be done. So tonight on the program, we shall focus on issues around the 6 years gains and challenges of the Buhari administration. Distinguished callers and public affairs analysts to analyze and seek ways of improving the gains achieved so far. I am Omini Odan. Welcome to the program. Before then, let's take a listen to this background report put together by Timothy Yusuf.
On May 29, 2019, President Muhammadu Buhari took another oath of office for the second time after being re-elected in the 2019 presidential election. It is now 2 years of the president's second term in office and 6 years of his administration, which many believe has recorded great strides as well as consolidating on the achievements of his first tenure under the change mantra. His second term under what is known as Next Level Agenda, however, has not been without challenges.
There is no part of this country that is safe. No part. North, east, west, south.
This second term. And I must commend the government for making effort, despite these challenges, still meeting its obligation.
While appreciable gains have been made in security, economy and the war against corruption, the 3 cardinal objectives of the administration, other sectors are also witnessing visible achievements and change.
One thing that makes me to like this president is that he's not a corrupt person. This is not the time for politics. I said, okay, listen, we are going through so much issue right now. But APC, but PDP, but Abuja, whatever party you call it, let's come together. What can we do? We need to support the government.
In the agricultural sector, for instance, the Buhari administration is leading the country to food security and self-sufficiency in rice and other grains, saving the country billions in foreign exchange. The transportation sector, many will agree, is flooded with lots of visible progress. The Abuja-Kaduna Railway has been up and running, amongst many others.
There are a lot of infrastructures put on ground by the present administration, more than ever before. One needs to travel along the crannies of this country. You will see a lot of development.
As a people-oriented government, the administration established a National Social Investment Program, NSIP, to tackle poverty and hunger across the country. So far, the NSIP has become the largest and most ambitious social safety net program in the history of Nigeria, with millions of direct beneficiaries. Since 2015, the economy has been witnessing appreciable rejuvenation. However, like other economies around the world, the current coronavirus pandemic has adversely affected the Nigerian economy.
I think whichever way you want to look at this administration, apart from the economic problems, which is not their making, that they are confronted with, they have been more purposeful than administration that we once had when oil was at $150 per barrel $120 per barrel, $100 per barrel for a long time. And this administration of the past, to be specific, the PDP administration, they made so much money from the crude of sales of crude oil, and there are no, you cannot, there's not any tangible project to show.
How can the Buhari administration further consolidate on the gains so far made in its 6 years in office, and how can the challenges be surmounted towards ensuring better service delivery to Nigerians? Guests on Tuesday Live will be providing answers to this and more. In Abuja, Timothy Yusuf, NT News.
Thank you, Timothy. 6 years down the line, governance and development within the Buhari administration is the focus of the program tonight. And I believe you're set to go with us tonight with my team of analysts and guests on the program. At some point, our phone line will be displayed on the screen, and if I told you, please turn down the volume of the television set to avoid the hallback or echo, so that and go straight to the point. No need rigmarolling. Also be part of the discussion tonight to our Twitter handle at NTA Tuesday Live. Well, I'm being joined tonight in Abuja, in Kaduna, and via Zoom in Abuja still. Kashim Ali, an engineer by profession and former president, Nigeria Society of Engineers. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And for a very long while, Chief Michael Ajayi, public affairs analyst and seasoned administrator. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, and good evening.
Joining us via Zoom, Susan Henshaw, attorney, social and political analyst. Good to see you on the program tonight.
So much. Thank you.
And from our Kaduna Network Center, we are being joined by Professor Kabiru Mato. He's a public affairs analyst, scholar, and call it analyst. Prof, good to see you on the program tonight.
Thank you very much. I mean, good evening, Nigeria.
Let me stay with you. Let me begin with you from Kaduna. I know a couple of days ago, chatting with you, you talked about democracy being a way of life, an evolving process. But let's look at the last 6 years. Let's not go too far. The last 6 years, as much as we say in governance is not that smooth, is not that difficult. In retrospect, give us in perspective, what has been your assessment in the last 6 years of this administration?
Thank you very much. Once again, good evening, viewers. I think to be very fair and attempt to be objective, as far as your question is concerned, is to say that the last 6 years have been very challenging in the sense that they represented a very serious attempt on the part of a serious state for the first time since the return to civil rule in 1999, attempting to perhaps right the wrongs, that have been deeply entrenched, within the Nigerian body politics, economy, and society. If you listen to what the commentators just before the commencement of this program had to say, especially borrowing from the words of, Senator Smart Adeyemi, that in the 16 years where the other political party was in charge of the governance of this country, huge sums of resources actually came in, arising of the very high price of crude oil in the international oil market. Unfortunately, what we saw in those preceding years were basically the dilapidation of infrastructure and the foundation for the contemporary insecurity that the nation is suffering from was apparently sown. There was, what I will commonly refer to as an apparent consensus on the part of the political establishment, to rough shoulder, and massacre the huge income that did accrue to this country during that period of time. And in my view, that could be said to be the immediate cost to this very gigantic security challenges and political agitation that we have, across the country today. So I will say, as a matter of introduction, that the last 6 years were really very painful. We have seen governments, not just at the center, but several other states making concerted efforts in order to be able to reconcile, the dwindling resources that, started accruing, especially from 2015 to date, vis-a-vis, the huge challenges, that the nation as a whole, began to face. So I think one leadership front, the leadership, yes, as sincere as it has been, the political establishment, especially, those that had to do with leadership in the economic sphere, became instantly desperate in ensuring that, the war which government has waged on against corruption, was counteracted. And I want to think that, that, as the common saying goes, corruption, you try to fight corruption and corruption fights back. I'm glad that a lot of Nigerians today apparently become aware of the fact that as a nation we cannot make any progress as long as we are not able to tame this monster that is called corruption, which has been responsible, for the seeming backward of this country, despite the huge human and material resources that, are endowed. That's one. Secondly, we have also seen in many other areas, in the area of, for instance, agriculture, the attempt by government to diversify, the commanding heights of the economy away from the monolithic entity called oil to the area of agriculture. Everyone will tell you that 70 to 75% of Nigerian population basically is agrarian, and yet we have not before now deployed any serious strategy of ensuring that, people change their ways and attitudes that they confront agriculture with. It's only this government that, for instance, came up with the idea of this Anchor Borrower program, which has tremendously helped, many states in this country and farmers to break even and, convince a lot of citizenry that, in fact, agriculture is not a business that is, subsistence, but it's a business that one can get, involved and therefore improve and increase, the national, GDP and so on and so forth. So I think the last 6 years have been really challenging. Yes, we are faced with a lot of, security challenges in the area of the insurrection in the northeastern part of this country initially and in several other parts of the country today, as well as, the pandemic of, banditry and other sort of criminalities that have become the order of the day. And I will also say, as far as that is concerned, a situation that has its roots, in a very long age neglect, that the nation has faced in the hands of its, political leadership. I'm glad that we are in the right direction, and the challenges obviously will be abating. And I do believe that with sustained efforts that will be put, that is being put by government at the center and in various states of the federation, I assure you that these matters will become a matter of history in no too long distant future from now. So we are facing challenges, there is no doubt about it, but I can see light at the end of the tunnel because the sincerity with which especially the federal state seems to be approaching national issues without sensationalization and without giving in to the huge agitation that comes from forces within the country. That, the tragedy of the Nigerian nation is that a lot of our economic elites are parasitic in nature, and we try to resist any attempt by any section of the ruling class that desires perhaps to try to change this scenario and make the elites, economic elites, more productive. And I think that's precisely, what this government seems to be doing in the last 6 years. It's no longer business as usual. You don't celebrate corruption anymore. We live in a country, those of us that are old enough have seen various scenarios where several Nigerians were only recognized and treated with respect in their communities if they indulged in this crime called corruption. Today, you can't raise your head, up in the community, and even if you are corrupt, the risks are really very high. The stakes are high. And of course, one of the solutions that every society usually deploys if it is faced with this crisis is to make sure that the stakes become very high and the price of corruption, therefore, unbearable to the citizenry. I want to think that this government is doing very well. It's left for us as citizens to make our strategic choice by not just supporting but also contributing positively in ensuring that these social ills that are confronting us are addressed, not for our sake but for the sake of our children and those yet unborn.
Thank you so much, Professor Kabiru Matu. We learned a new thing, the banditry pandemic. We have talked about global pandemic, which is the COVID-19. He has keyed in banditry pandemic as one of the challenges. Let's still come down to Abuja, but let's do Susan, who's joining us via Zoom tonight. Susan, listening to Professor Kabiru Matu, he touched on the social intervention programs of the government, side by side the citizens and the economy. How do you assess it in the last 6 years?
I'm going to give it a pass, Mac. I think that realistically speaking, especially when we're talking about the social investment programs, let's understand that this is the first time. It's not that there haven't been attempts at social investment programs, but this is the first time, literally, since the beginning of our democratic governance, that we've had programs set out, we've had monies earmarked and put into those programs, we've had the programs run properly, take off properly, or should I say unwind and unroll, in a timely manner. And we've had those programs running as planned. This is the very first time. And some of those programs have honestly been very, very, the programs we've really needed in this country. We've really needed those programs. And we have to understand one thing, that even in developed countries where you have programs such as, let's say, the almighty welfare in the United States, even until this day, several hundred years after, those programs are still being tweaked and are still being, made right. There's fraud, there's this, there's that. So I have to give the government kudos, really. All the efforts that the government has made, considering, like I said, this is the beginning, really true beginning of any social investment in this country. All the programs for young people, the work programs, and as the days go by, or as the months go by, I've seen new things go on. For example, the one that the Labor Department is running right now, where young people are being, sent into work. I don't recall off the top of my head what it's called, but it's run out of the Department of Labor. And so all those new things keep cropping up. We've gone through quite a lot, actually. I don't want to list them all. We've gone through where we had, even a couple of months back, we had the market money, the trader money, we had school feeding, we've had all kinds of things go on, and we have to give the government kudos for that. Like I said, the genuine effort, and the, it's not easy really, particularly in a country like this with our peculiarities, to have, it's been a bold, very bold move in all the money that has been put inside and the takeoff. It's actually really commendable, honestly, as far as social investment. I really think that this is a start, and as the next administration, in the spirit of continuity, would actually take that and make it better. I'm looking forward really to institutional properly and, having been institutionalized already. I'm looking forward to subsequent governments after this one, taking it and running with it. And long story short, let's give, I always like to give credit where credit is due. So social investment, pass mark.
Thank you so much. Let me go to Chief Michael Ajayi. My elementary economics tells me that resources are always available. Yeah. But resources, as much as they are available, they're always scarce. So whether they are abundant or scarce, it is how you deploy these resources that matters. The last 6 years, the interplay between the center and the subnationals, states, local governments, what's your assessment in terms of the deployment of resources where they need to be? Judging from Kabir Mato's takeoff, Susan Sensual's level.
Well, we have to look, put it in a context, particularly the coming into government of this present administration in 2015. By the time the president assumed office, most of the states could not afford to pay salaries, pensions, and that there was this crisis. And that was what led to the issue of yearning for change. And so when the president came in, the first thing he did was to tackle this crisis. Because most of the workers at that time were going home working without feeding. And you can understand the pains they were. They couldn't afford most of them had underlying medical conditions. They could not afford to pay for their drugs. They could not afford their rents. They could not afford to pay the fees of their children. So these were challenges. And even the president said at that time that he himself was a retiree and he could understand where the shoe pinches. So at the time he came in, there was this financial crisis. And immediately what he did, he adopted the non-partisan approach, irrespective of the political parties you belong. And there was this bailout fund running into trillions. And states were allowed to have access to this. So it was called bailout. So most of them were given several billions to bail out, even though some of them did not honestly bail out the crisis they met at that time. But then the president faithfully assisted the state, irrespective of the political party you belong. And that shows another level of political maturity on the part of the presidency at that time. And looking at the deployment of resources, that also we dovetail to the local government area. The local government at that time was in a deep red. No money to execute projects. Most of the workers were going to the offices without doing any job. And even in some cases, you had local government chairmen only going to offices when there was allocation of resources to that area. And immediately that resources was exhausted, they left the office and wait for another handout. So in terms of resources at that time, the country was, the states and the local government were wretched until the federal government of the President Buhari decided to bail them out. So that was our experience. Unfortunately, again, along the line in the 6 years, the regime ran into a bad weather of how do I put it now? The growth was negative, and it was able to regulate itself out of this. And that is economic management on the part of the presidency. So in terms of deployment of resources, at the federal level, resources were actually deployed. But unfortunately, again, just as I said, the price of crude oil went down as against the previous regime that had a lot of resources to play with. And they fiddled with it. They misspent this money, particularly on security. There were instances where we heard report that $2 billion were allocated for managing the security crisis of the country. Unfortunately, it was deployed to other areas party members saw it as a windfall, and some of them were allocated to people to go and pray. There were individuals that collected the money because they want to use it to pray, and some decided to steal the money and launder it out of the country. So, but the president was able to do a lot in this area, particularly trying to hold the country against the fact that the price of crude oil had fallen. And there was this attempt, too, to diversify the economy. And in fact, a lot of symposia were held on how to diversify the economy. And the federal government at that time, what they did was to even ban the importation of rice, to encourage individuals. Just as Professor Kabiru said, there was this anchor program that was instituted running to about 2 billion, and it was given to about 1.5 million farmers so that they had access to this fund, poultry, maize, and so on and so forth. All these are cash crops, and they had access to these funds. And it was to develop the agriculture area and to pursue the diversification of agric, driving the economy away from the over-reliance on oil. So it's a plus for the administration, I would say. And besides, even if you go, one thing I would like to commend the administration particularly is in the area of rail transport. For a very long time, most regimes had abandoned rail transport, which should be the nerve center of transportation in any economy. In fact, transportation is so crucial that it drives the economy. But unfortunately, most administrations abandoned it right from when railway came into existence in 1896. All through the military regimes, it was abandoned. You can remember the Takpe Wari was also abandoned. It was started in 1987, abandoned until this present administration took it over and commissioned it. Kaduna Abuja rail is functioning standard gauge. Now we are talking of Abuja Kanu, which is also in the offing. Ibadan Lagos road, 157 kilometer standard gauge is also to be commissioned, but it's already almost completed. So the administration has been able to deploy resources in the area of agriculture, in the area of rail transportation, and even in the area of education. But we hope that, and the worst part of it was the emergence of coronavirus. It was a pandemic that dislocated the whatever plans.
Pandemic now.
This is the real pandemic, I would say. It marginalized even the strongest economy and dislocated whatever plans you had. The budget at that time, the plans they had at the National Assembly, all the benchmark they put, it was completely dislocated. So it caused for a lot of sympathy. And it's still affecting us at the moment. You understand that we are still under some rules now until August 1, when we'll be free to be lifted and we'll be free to move around. And I want to commend the government on this area that unfortunately the pandemic, coronavirus was a terrible thing that dislocated the economy.
Okay, we'll get to just some components of that. Let me go to Engineer Kashim Ali. Looking at governance, they say is a continuum. What would have happened if, as this government came in 16 years after, and as it came in, they jettisoned every other project that was started even before the life of the 16 years administration and started new ones? But what we saw kind of was inheritance, which at some point some critics felt the administration had no vision, no direction, because it inherited projects that they viewed touches the lives of Nigerians, and some are completed, like here I talked about the railway transportation. Sustainability, continuity. How do you assess the administration 6 years down the line?
Well, thank you very much. It's good that I'm speaking after the eminent Nigerian who spoke. And I love some words that I pick from there, like this parasitic elites, also the banditry pandemic. I love that one. Then talk about basic economy that say resources are always available and resources are also not always enough. But let's even go back to the mantra that the present administration projected. That is, provide security, second, economic development, and tackle corruption. Now, security often in Nigeria, I think because of the long period of military governance, we always look at physical security. And people's mind is always how to deal with this with force. So usually when they don't see that, or they see that they can't see enough of it, there's no need for more. But security has components, and the basic ones I have the physical and the social. But the real, what even brings security, what brings security to a nation or to a group of people is social security. Because no matter how much force you use to coerce people to do the right thing, in quote, you must come down to talk about it. Because people reject things because they do not understand them, or they have understanding but have clearly different opinion on such things. So if you coerce them, at long line, you must sit down with them also to say, okay, look, you didn't agree with this out of ignorance. This is the, so we must do that. So, but we focused on that physical security a lot. And when you talk about economic development, again, my opinion is that over this year especially, we have looked at economic development in terms of economics. Economics as taught in the university, BSc Econs and all those things. But economic development is not that, certainly not. Just like you can use sometimes engineering to say you engineer a process and all those. You have all those things. But when it's used in that context, it's not talking about the Y, the X. So economic development is not about economics. But again, I think over this year, we have allowed too many economists to confuse us with all manners of theories that have not worked for us. I give you an example. Impression was given many years ago that if we can grow our GDP to a certain level, Nigeria would have been out of poverty. We manipulated this GDP and we had the highest GDP in Africa. But our condition was not anything close to that of South Africa, that was number 2, or Egypt, that was number 3. And even the smaller countries that were far, far below, our situation didn't change. So it means something is wrong with our understanding of some of these basic things. So now, and even look at anti-corruption again, I have another person. I don't want to look at that. I want to move forward.
To that.
Yes, so I want to look for. So if a program is on course and it has a terminal point, if you truncate it, you also not have peace. It doesn't matter what, if because at the end of the day, there are inconveniences that come with it if you terminate. So I think this government has been reasonable to appreciate that it will be a thorn in their own flesh if they don't do some of these things, and they did them. Quite commendable. But there has to be gains from whatever you put money into. That is my belief. And that is what I have known nations to do. Make some gains at whatever you invest in. Have we gained enough from our investments over this period? Have we gained enough from investing in the railway line between Lagos and Ibadan? Have we gained enough in comparing the railway project between Abuja and Kaduna? Have we gained enough in redesigning and doing the highways between Lagos and Ibadan? The complex CC that came into the execution, have we gained enough from investment in those complexities? Have we gained? So for me, I prefer to look at it from that perspective, because it's not enough to just invest some money. There must be takeaways. And for a nation, what are your takeaways? That you can domesticate all that you have done. If you have done this road, the next time you want to do this road, you shouldn't invite anybody again to do for you. You should be able to do it yourself. If you've done this railway program, you should be able to do it again. So to that extent, have we done that?
When you say you shouldn't invite anybody to come and do it for you, what does that mean?
What I mean is, for instance, the railway project we are doing in Nigeria generally, which didn't even start from this administration, is being done by the Chinese. The tragedy of it is not even that the Chinese are doing it, it's that all the components, in fact, the rail tracks are imported into this country. We have the capacity to do the rail tracks in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. Why did we refuse to do it? Now we import the cost of freighting the tracks from China to this place enough could do some city metro systems. Why have we refused to listen to professionals? So as far as I'm concerned, there has been, yes, investment, a lot of things we can see visibly. I won't have data. We'll do what we call the infrastructure report card, and we'll have data. There's increment in the infrastructure that has been done, but we need to gain. There are fundamental gains that we need to have as a nation. I think we seem to have lost that because we have not trusted enough and invested enough in our own professional human capital. That is the challenge that is for the government, and there's still time to make a correction.
Okay, thank you. Let's go back to Kaduna. Professor Kabiru, would we say, as much as I know very well that we will not say it is all Uhuru for now, we'll get to asking, is there anything the administration would have done this way and got it perfectly? But let's look at diversifying the economy. Like there's some persons will say, every economy is diversified already. It is how where you deploy resources to these sectors that the diversification picture looks up. There has been so much talk about diversifying the economy, diversifying from dependence on oil to the non-oil sector. What's your assessment?
It is true that the only way, one of the ways out of this economic quagmire will be a deliberate attempt on the part of government and support from the citizenry to diversify the economy from its complete dependence on a monolithic source, which is the oil source. Yes, agriculture is there, and one of the things that I think we need to really place appropriately is that throughout developing economies like Nigeria, there are three major sources of economic development, or what you say, three major sources of employment. One of them, of course, is the railway. The other one is the construction industry, and perhaps the third one is the textile industry. Now, this government inherited a scenario where all the three major sources of mass employment, were comatose. And in my view, so far the attempts to, revive or invigorate the railway system will go a long way in providing a lot of activity apart from the socio-political advantages of integration, etc., etc. There will also be the economic dimension of it, which will be opening space for a lot of economic activities to take place, within the various parts of the country on one hand. On the other hand, also engaging and employing a lot of other people and then taking them out of, the unemployment cycle and thus poverty line. As it is today, if you see the number of young people that walk on the trains between Kaduna and Abuja and Kaduna is, very alarming. It tells you that if we will have the capacity to jack up this rail system to Kano, to Maiduguri, and then back to Abuja, and then to Itakpe, and then across Nigeria. And if the trains from Lagos will come to Ibadan and proceed to Kano, I tell you that tens of thousands of young Nigerians will be gainfully employed, and it will also help in generating a lot of economic activities. We have seen the way, several roads are constructed, both by the federal and several other state governments. That also is giving room for the employment of several citizens, and it's a way of diversifying the economy from this strict over-reliance on what is produced, in the oil industry. Government relying, There are very few states in this country today that can raise their heads and say we are generating sufficient revenues to be able to run our activities. Not more than 4 or 5. What is the reason? Because of the excessive dependence on oil, apart from Lagos and a few others, So obviously, whether we like it or not, this is the area to go. Governments must insist and ensure that the sources of revenue, apart from mobile, you cannot generate sufficient revenue from taxation and other sources internally unless you are able to create economic activity. And so diversification will continue to be the way out of this economic quagmire that we find ourselves in, and unless governments and citizens take it with all manner of seriousness, then we will continue to face some of the challenges that we are facing. Now let me attempt to, in the construction industry, just like my colleague there in the studio was saying, there are quite a lot of areas we have not probably been able to go into the railway transportation system and probably devise some internal capacity to be able to say, okay, now the Chinese have done this from Kaduna to Abuja, or from Abuja to Kaduna, and from Lagos, to Ibadan, or from Warri to Itakpe, that our engineers at home and other professionals will be able to take over that. But in the area of road construction and other things, I have seen a lot of, some of these Nigerian farms that are doing so well. If you come to Kaduna today and you see the urban renewal program that is taking place, and you find that one of the major contractors there is Ronchas. Ronchas is a wholly indigenous Nigerian construction company that is doing so well that when you see what they are, the type of roads and infrastructure they are putting in place is of equal or even higher quality than the one the Chinese and other contractors from outside are putting. So I think the domestic factor, the Nigerian professionals are also making a lot of efforts in order to be able to imbibe this technology and also be able to make a lot of these things happen right here without necessarily inviting people from outside. So to answer your question, it is necessary for us as a people and a nation to make sure that the economy of this country is diversified. One of the reasons why we suffered from heavy shock in 2020 was as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, and because the price of oil sank very low in the international oil market, and so income accruing to Nigeria, became very, very low. And this may be, of course, the reason why today, the NNPC has been shouting that it's unable to distribute anything, or it's not going to be able to distribute anything to the other levels of government because of, one, low income, and secondly, certain basic services that, it has to pay for, which, in my view, again, takes us to that back, scenario of over-relying, over-dependence, on oil as the mainstay of the Nigerian economy. So the way to go is to diversify. We must do everything humanly possible to ensure that the railway transportation system, after all, there is no country that can make any progress as far as transportation of goods, haulage, human beings is concerned, if the railway transportation system is faulty. And I think one of the major achievements of this government, which there is apparent consensus on the part of, a lot of us that are, studios tonight, and also many Nigerians outside, whether, of the APC, PDP, or any extraction for this matter, clearly showing that, yes, it's an achievement and there is a need to upscale it in order to be able to, diversify the economy of this country, provide, jobs for tens of thousands of very young-bodied boys and girls that have graduated from, various institutions of higher learning and are just idling the, streets without any form of, gainful employment. So, and that's the way to go. Again, that's the way to shed off, the current congestion that we have in our various, state services in the civil service, both at the center and in the 36 states and federal capital territory today. It's unbearable. It's impossible, for governments to continue to spend 95, 96, 90, 80% of whatever they are making from the federation account in the payment of salaries of less than 1% of the population. Now, you can create a lot of employment if you diversify the economy, and people will not make it a matter of life and death that once they graduate from colleges of education, polytechnics, or universities, they are waiting, they're only looking, their eyes are basically on government to provide, sources of employment for them. If the economy is diversified, we have construction activities going on across the country, the federal, the state, and local government councils engaged in building roads, building bridges, and other form of infrastructures. A lot of young people will be employed. Similarly is the case if we try to encourage the private sector. A lot of noise has been made in the past. Billions and billions of naira injected into the textile industries, but we still see them not working. And that's one major area of economic diversification that if we succeed in having them back on the stream, then I assure you that it will also help a lot in shading off a lot of these problems that several governments at various levels are facing. So economic diversification is the way to go, and I'm happy that it's one of the priorities of this government. More efforts need to be put in place in order to ensure that, the reality becomes that, government is no longer the major employer of labor, but the private sector. So diversification is the way to go, and there is no alternative to it.
We do a studio here, then go to Susan. Chief Ajayi, however we look at it, all what government is doing, social contracts.
Yeah.
Those in government and those who are being governed. One area that is very, very crucial and critical is security, and we cannot shy away from it. As much as the challenges are there, a lot is being deployed to surmount, but we still have it looking at us. Would you say they have covered some milestones in this direction?
Obviously, they have covered a lot of milestones. To say they have not done that, it means that we are saying that government has abdicated its responsibility to the people in line with the social contract you have mentioned. We read in the papers every day that government is deploying resources, but unfortunately, the non-state actors, the activities of the non-state actors appears to make it look as if government is doing nothing. But the truth and the reality is that government is doing a lot. We all know the situation that is befalling this country, the lack of resources to provide gainful employment to all the teeming youths of this country has led to another dimension, that in the southwest you have some kind of insecurity in that place and ethnic agitation. In the southeast you have insecurity there. In the northwest, banditry or banditry pandemic, as the professor said. And in the northeast you have another dimension there, and it goes on and it's increasing by the day. What we need to do is, if you compare the Jonathan administration, the kind of insecurity at that time and now, they are different. The present one has taken a different dimension. With Zamfara, you have the issue of gold for arms at that angle, and federal government has taken decisive action. You have a complete ban. The area has been declared as a no-flight zone, and mining has been banned completely in that area. Government has got involved in importation of equipment, military equipment, and I'm talking here of fighter jets and so on and so forth. You have seen that even the military architecture itself has been rejigged completely. We have the appointment of new military brass to plan a way by which we can tame insecurity in the country. So I want to say that the government has done a lot in this area, and it's given the president a sleepless night, even though he's a general. But he's doing a lot. The National Security Advisor has spoken about all the efforts the government is doing to tame insecurity. Unfortunately, the non-state actors have really shaken the government. Look at Niger State, very close to this place. You find a situation whereby you go to secondary schools, primary schools, the bandits are operating freely in a way that is embarrassing the government. Students are abducted in Kaduna State, they are abducted, and unfortunately the issue of security has been politicized, where you see some governors will be talking of negotiating with bandits. And even our ordinary dictionary, advanced learner dictionary, has defined who a bandit is. They are rogues. These are people without home address or addresses, and they are fighting for survival. So if you negotiate with them today and you give them something to eat or you give them money, they will still come back again to demand for more. So I do not see any, a country where you've been negotiating with bandits. The present Kaduna State government, when he started it, I knew that it's going to lead us to a different level, because at that time he said, well, there's nothing wrong in negotiating with them, but I'm happy now he has seen the truth in the light that you don't negotiate with bandits. It's either you go after them or you find another way of dealing with the banditry pandemic in the country. So all efforts are being put in place by the government. All forces are, this situation now has even gone beyond the issue of police handling they are supposed to handle internal crisis. It has gone beyond them. And what the government is doing at the moment is to ensure that technology is employed. We have read of the importation of drones. So people are even talking of hiring mercenaries. I don't see how mercenaries will know your terrain more than your own military soldiers. If Nigeria has solved the security crisis in Gambia, Sierra Leone, Liberia, even Somalia, I don't see any reason why these gallant officers and the military cannot solve the internal crisis we have. The point is that the issue of security in Nigeria has been politicized. The politicians have made it look as if it is something that is intractable to solve. It is solvable. And I see that it's going to be solved, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, let's go to Susan. Susan, listening to Chief Ajayi engage the way he did, are we saying that as a people, besides what government is doing, is there anything the citizens can do? And also, by the minutes, by the hours, by tomorrow morning, if you turn on to television, listen to radio, go to the national dailies, all you see is killings here, killings there. What can we make out of this? Quite disturbing.
Lost you the last few words, but let me respond to at least the bit I heard. Now, regarding security, yeah, you hit the nail right on the head when you said what can other sectors in this country do as far as helping out with the security situation. Now, we all know that for now, what's going on, which is making insecurity very peculiar in this country, is that everybody is pointing to the federal government as if communities, state governors, and everybody else, individuals, should not be involved in security. It's just the federal government's problem. Now, I don't care how effective a government is. Insecurity requires it requires such huge collaborative effort from every single person, every single place. Now, unless that is done, and unless people change that mindset and understand that we can play all the politics we want and say, oh, the government is not fixing this situation, people are dying, people are getting robbed, there's high crime. But in every, I'll draw an example, in every civilized country, and these are countries that have, you know, the technology and so on to deal with crime. They have strong institutions like the police and so on. But you find out that there's nowhere you go, for example, in the United States, where you do not see multi-level security, you know. Apart from the police, you have community watches. I know we have them also in Lagos and so on. You have, in fact, in our situation, state governors sometimes can also be said to have been kind of very lackadaisical about, you know, the situation in the country or in their states in particular. The federal government doesn't have to be involved in the little cultism and so on going on. You know, if state governors, and I'm not laying blame, I'm just, you know, analyzing the whole security thing. If state governors had started nipping in the bud the little things that were going on, you know, mom and dad being kidnapped here and there, and I'm not talking about the interstate highways right now, because that's the federal government's, you know, responsibility. But I'm talking about, say, within state boundaries and towns and cities and local governments and all that. I really don't think that cumulatively there was a good grip when all these things started happening. You know, each state had its own different situation with its own different styles and criminals, you know. In some states, it was kidnapping, it was armed robbery, it was area boys, you know, and just all kinds of criminal activity that really should have, state governors should have come down really hard on. We should have come down really hard on these things, but it didn't happen. And we have 36 states and the federal, and Abuja, the federal territory, capital territory. And I don't care how, you know, how genuine the purpose of the federal government is, or how well intended it is, or even how well equipped it is. It can't do it alone. It can't do it alone. I think that as a community, we all have to understand that crime would go away or go down once we all, you know, get rid of this mentality that it's, you know, the solution lies in Abuja somewhere, you know, when there's trouble in Enugu or there's trouble in Calabar, everybody's saying, oh, there's so much insecurity. And nobody is saying, what is our governor doing to curb some of what is going on in our state? You know, what's he doing? And if there was really a cry, you know, from citizens that the governors should be more responsible, at least for the security situation that pertain to them. You know, people say, oh, you know, the state governors are not, they don't have police powers and all of that. Yeah, they don't, but they can work around it. You know, it's not that when they require approval for police action, they don't get it. Some governors have actually said, yes, we don't get, you know, when we call on the federal government, they don't show up. But you have to understand that our resources are not just limited. Oh, goodness. You know, but sorry about that. I think the power went off for a minute. And so, like I was saying, I said, you know, we have to work with what we have. Everybody knows this, but I think that we got to a certain place in this country where just pass the buck to the federal government, just blame the federal government, you know? Citizens are shouting in the states about petty crimes going on, you know, street thugs and so on. That's not the responsibility of the federal government. That's why state governments have provided security votes to deal with those little shenanigans going on within their state. You know, for the ordinary man, it gets overwhelming. It gets overwhelming when he can't go from point A to B at night, you know, without worrying if he's going to be snatched off the street. You know, but people need to understand that the responsibility of the federal government comes in only in certain regards. When there's when the problems are interstate problems, like the interstate or the federal government or the freeways between states, or when a state has been so overwhelmed, that it can no longer cope. And that has happened, it's happened in Benue State, that's, it's happened even in Niger State as we're speaking about it. But I don't want to move on too fast on this security issue. Let's take Niger State, for example. Why would criminals be able to come, same manner of operation, same style, literally same numbers? They come in and kidnap a few weeks or a month or so in between. What exactly changed between the time the first kidnappings happened and when the second one happened? Were they more deployment of local recruits? Because these people come armed and they come in numbers. We already know that, So exactly how many schools do you have that you cannot? It is not that you don't have the resources, because let's face it, like I said, some states have over 500,000 a month, earmarked for security. How is it not possible that arrangements can be made for schools? How many schools are there for security to be provided in schools that are more vulnerable than not? I noticed that, we all know that they don't go to big cities. They don't come in big cities in the middle of town and take children away. So reserve your resources for those schools and, that are a little bit out of town and the easy routes to escape with kids or with students. Why are all those things, not being done? And maybe they're done, but they're not done effectively and they're not done thoroughly, because the federal government is going to be blamed. It's always going to be one word: Buhari is not doing this and Buhari is not providing security. Let's take a step back and hold the rational authorities on ground for what they're supposed to do. Even if, for goodness sake, it diminishes, this governor step up and it diminishes to 1 or 2%, that's still, going down, not the situation going up. So other than that, we need to understand that we're a country of, they say 200 and a little over 200 million. But I'm sure by the time we get the next census going, we'll find out that we're probably closer to 250 million than, 210, and we have to understand that as the numbers increase, resources have to increase. If not, it's not, security is not going to happen. The army is overstretched. They're over here fighting in the external borders. They're over here trying to calm nuisances within states, agitations and all of that. But here's the worst thing, that a nation cannot come together for its own preservation. It's one of the most shocking things ever. We have, for example, the news media. The news media has been, I'm sorry that I keep going back to the media. The media has been probably the biggest letdown this country has had to deal with in quite a while. When there's a situation in a country where people need to come together and stand against criminals, it's when the Nigerian media is playing footsie. I don't know why. I don't want to make accusations and say, the whole issue of brown envelope and all that, that'd be going too far. But for goodness sake, the Nigerian media needs to stand up and understand that it has work to do. It has work to do in not, putting out all the negative spins, fabrications. In fact, as the days go by and situations get more dire, the media gets even more reckless when the reverse should be the case. So these are the things that, as far as security, it's not a one-off, one-solution thing. Communities need to come together and take their communities back from criminals. If you're going to put ethnicity and tribalism and all that before your own preservation of your own life, that's, I don't understand it. So things need to change, and I hope that if people are listening, we need to understand that we need to take our country back. I don't care how well-intended, like I say, the president is. He's not going to be able to do it by himself. No nation has left its internal security, completely to just one person or one sector of government to salvage. The army can't do it alone. The police can't do it. So we're gonna have to decide as a nation that I don't care if these people are a tribe or they're ethnic people, all of the agitations, and I've said that on this, on TV before, all of these agitations are headed nowhere. People are disgruntled about something. They need to take a step back and figure out that violence and killing and threatening and putting the fear of God in the localities is not going to give them what they want. And I say that because we have a good example in Boko Haram. Since these people started in the past 10 years or more, they haven't been able to take one book out of the classroom. Not a single book. They haven't been able to stop literacy. They haven't been able to stop education, and they probably never will. But look at the amount of lives that have been lost. It's the same thing with secessionists and so on. Lives are going to be lost. People are going to be displaced, and all kinds of ills are going to come onto their local communities and probably the wider communities. But secession is not going to happen that way.
Thank you, Susan. That's the much I can take from you. We'll still come back to you for other perspectives. We'll take some reports now. When we return, we'll begin with Engineer Kashimali on other perspectives, looking at 6 years down the line, governance and development. I could see Susan was really getting very, very hot there regarding issues of security. They are quite disturbing in the country. It looks as though a lot has not been put in place. It looks as though the security architecture has gone to sleep. But so much, like Chief James Ajayi has said, Michael Ajayi has said, has been put in place. We achieved it. Our first report tonight is coming from Lagos.
Metropolitan Lagos is not just home to the busiest seaport in the country, but also houses hundreds of industries. And since the sustenance of these economic firepowers is key to the federal government, infrastructure investments in Lagos are built around basic facilities that will ease their continued existence. Hence, the idea of rehabilitating roads, building bridges, and establishing rail connectivity. The Apapa Oshodi Oworoshoki Expressway is one of the few roads linking the seaports, but was previously in a bad state, thereby reducing turnover on investments and creating endless gridlock. But the presidential mandate on the ease of doing business necessitated its reconstruction. Today, progress of work done is put at 75%, with concentration now on the service lanes.
This is an infrastructure issue. It's very critical. We are working in the Second Niger Bridge in the southeast. We are working in Kano Abuja in northwest. We are working on Kano Lagos Ibadan in southwest. So it's all over. We are working all over the nation.
The reinforced concrete pavement technology adopted in the rehabilitation work is giving assurance that infrastructure investment in this direction is not a waste.
There are about 11 number roads that the federal government is already intervening. Among them is this Lagos Shagamu Road, which is being rehabilitated and is being expanded. So it's called reconstruction and rehabilitation because initially there were 2 number lanes. It has been upgraded to 3 number lanes on each side of the carriageway.
Bridges are not left out, as the federal government is following up its rehabilitation of the third mainland bridge with the resurfacing and realignment of the Eko Bridge. And starting from June 4, the bridge will be closed to traffic for repairs.
The actual contract period that we have on the Eko Bridge is going to be from 4th of June to 13th of August, and that is about 9 weeks.
The icing on the cake is the Lagos-Ibadan rail line project, which, despite awaiting commissioning, is already rendering world-class services to commuters. And the spectrum of hope here is that passengers will not only be moved in thousands, but containers will be exited from their Apapa port with ease, thereby reducing the constraints on roads. As it stands, the project is at advanced stage, and come June, it will be commissioned by President Muhammadu Buhari.
We must not fail to say that we've had wonderful cooperation from all the communities from Lagos to Ibadan. We pray we have that same cooperation with all other communities we are going to go to in the course of construction.
Our next report tonight is coming from Kaduna.
Among the projects receiving adequate attention include 48.9 kilometer Kaduna Eastern Bypass awarded since 2002 but was abandoned. Work resumed in earnest in 2017 and it is expected to be completed this year.
We are working, trying to cross over by Kaduna. That's the biggest bridge on this road. Hopefully by the end of this year, we'll be able to cross over.
For now, our speed was very high. This time around, we are still trying to maintain it. But you can see that if you go to the main point where we are doing the pier and the pipe up, there is this water time. That's the period of rain, which the water tide has started rising. But then, we are trying to diversify a means of continuing our job so that we can do cross beam and other things, so that between now, before end of the year, we'll complete the bridge.
However, rehabilitation of Abuja Kaduna Kano dual carriageway is one of the projects initiated by President Muhammadu Buhari. This explained massive investment on the project to ensure quality.
Government decided to pick a very competent contractor. If you look at the road now, the areas have been completed. It is fantastic, and the concept for this road is different. Sometimes one of the challenges we have over accidents because people think the road has been expanded. It's not so. It's the quality of work such that even what we call the shoulder has been constructed with the same material as the main carriageway. That way, to ensure that the road does not start deteriorating. Usually it starts from the shoulder. So even when you park your vehicle on the road, that shoulder is as strong as the carriageway.
Road users are of the belief that the project will significantly improve the transport sector.
With the present administration and the construction work ongoing right now, a remarkable job, beautiful job.
Because before, once we pass there, we must visit a mechanic almost every day. But this administration now, the level of the road now is, the construction of the road is at least they are trying.
Another project with potential to improve the economic fortunes of the region is Ajakuta Kaduna Kano gas pipeline. When completed, it will help a reviving collapsed industry and create jobs.
It's an opportunity for urea fertilizer to be produced from basic raw materials here in the north. Besides that, we can produce methanol. Methanol is an export commodity. The largest methanol producer in the world is Qatar.
Security remains a major challenge, but government is not resting on its oars to overcome the problem as it continues to map out plans in dealing with the emerging trend.
The last report that concluded on security, and from Maiduguri comes a report that despite security challenges, many infrastructural development programs have been executed or ongoing in Borno State, with significant number targeting road construction and the education sector.
Urban and rural road construction projects that form part of federal constituency developmental interventions are ongoing along Kano Maiduguri dualization in Biu, Kwaekusar, Bayo and Shani local government areas, in addition to construction of hospitals, mini stadium, street light and schools in the areas. The Mongono Town Water Works is a major federal government intervention that is targeting provision of water to communities in northern Borno. The education sector in Borno has continued to enjoy a large share of federal infrastructure development projects through special grants, TED Fund, ETF, and UBEC counterpart funding for schools.
The provision of ICT across the universities and polytechnics and the colleges of education, we are laying the necessary infrastructure that will facilitate ICT learning. Once upon a time, this might have been considered a privilege.
Our tertiary institutions used to get intervention from TED Fund every year. College of Education and even the university ETF intervene in constructing hostel and lecture theaters in the College of Health Sciences, over 3 billion naira.
Some of the beneficiary institutions are the University of Maiduguri, Nigerian Army University Bureau, Colleges of Education, Borno State University, and the Ramad Polytechnic Maiduguri.
29 projects done in the university, quite a number of them completed, some still ongoing, and we want to thank Mr. President for granting us this kind of interventions that have moved our university to another level.
In the area of security, a lot has been made in the reopening of roads and return of people to their once deserted communities by Borno State government. This achievement would not have been possible without improved security, owing to ongoing counter-insurgency operations by military and other security formations, including CJTF and hunters.
In due course, every space, every inch of land, including the tumbos, will be controlled by civil authority.
The general security situation in the state for now is calm. We are going to have a serious collaboration and synergy with all the relevant stakeholders.
The rebuilding process in Borno is being supported by federal government through the Northeast Development Commission, with thousands of housing in devastated communities.
The last report on this segment is coming from Port Harcourt.
After every election, expectations are usually high among the populace for those elected into various political offices to embark on project execution.
And we don't wish the government to fail, but what we need is that there should be an improvement in governance.
The East-West Road and the Port Harcourt-Aba Expressway have always been projects which people have had much expectations given years of neglect. Before now, navigating through these federal roads were pathetic. The story appears to be different now.
For years now, the East-West Road have been a death trap, but we thank God that the government have been able to put it in order.
And as you can see, the renovations are going on. Before, it used to be ethic. As the renovation is going on, it's a good thing.
The key critical national assets and investments along the East-West Road, especially the One-Eleme axis, make the road very critical to the nation's economy. Funding, which has been a major setback to the execution of federal projects in the past, appear to be a thing of the past.
These contractors were starved of funds in the past. We came, we said, this is not acceptable to the second administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, and we tried to look for funds from anywhere to ensure that this project is completed.
Under President Muhammadu Buhari, the federal government equally completed the international wing of the Port Harcourt International Airport. The Bodo-Bonny Road, a critical live wire project to the nation's economy, is at an advanced stage of completion, running under a public-private partnership.
The road that will take you to Bonny now is very easy way to us now, so I like it.
Presently, we have achieved a percentage completion of 37%.
Notwithstanding the criticism by some dissatisfied stakeholders, the Ogoni cleanup project is equally on course. While the government kickstarts the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refineries, experts in the petroleum sector harped on the essence of local refining towards adding value to the economy.
Report from Port Harcourt is the last for this segment, and we'll continue, but after the break. Stay with us.
We need to reach out to the people. We should convince them. We should use the systems that we have used before in getting our people vaccinated over the years.
Please, this is good for you and good for others and good for the health of all Nigerians.
I want to reassure our people that as your governor, I will not subscribe to anything that will harm you might affect your well-being.
Which has helped other states, including states, to demonstrate capacity to rise to the occasion in our collective effort to win the desired war against COVID-19.
From all indications, quality, safety, efficacy, the benefits outweigh the side effects. So, from all indications, the generally safe.
I have to congratulate Mr. President and particularly the PTF headed by the Solicitor government.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying tuned, and tonight is a look at 6 years down the line, governance and development. Well, we shall be going into other sectors, but quickly let's begin with Engineer Kashimali. The bulk of the reports looked at infrastructure, mostly on roads. Yeah. But we'll say it is one thing, for instance, to just walk to a car stand, pick up a car. It's another thing to maintain the car over the years. Will you be able to fuel it? Can you maintain it effectively? Now, it is one thing to even begin a project, or begin projects, or inherit projects. It is one thing to finish them. Inheriting and stopping them halfway is another one. So, what's your assessment the last 6 years? And two, is a double-barrel question now. How well has the Executive Order 5 been utilized in your sector?
Thank you very much. Well, let me, you said it well. It's one thing to have, another to keep what you have. We've been very poor in keeping the things that we have. You know, there's this attitude that, especially when it has to do with infrastructure, once you put it, it should self-protect. It never happens that way. You go to other countries, you see roads that are old, really very old, but they are in good condition because there's a maintenance schedule that is kept and followed. But here we are. Do you know, at a point in Nigeria, we lost all our roads. In fact, the federal roads. Okay, let me start from this. There are about 200,000 kilometers of roads in Nigeria. Out of that, only about 36 or so is for the federal government. The balance is for the state government. But nobody really talks about the state government and local government roads. Let me even talk, so let's focus on the federal government roads. Within the sphere of the federal government, at a point, 73% were totally in horrible condition. In fact, they had failed and they required rehabilitation or reconstruction, 73%. And the balance of 27 included Abuja roads, because this federal government owned also. So if you take Abuja out, which is a special project, then you are talking about maybe about 20 or less than 20 of federal roads being in good condition. So that is where we were. But today, from what we have from the audit, there's work going on virtually everywhere. Since work is going on, the expectation is that they will be completed and have road. And FEMA is doing exceedingly well, I must say that. So there's roads now that, if you notice, there are some roads that were in horrible condition at the point. By the time you drive over them, after 1 week, you see that the condition has changed. They are doing palliative things so that they keep the roads in good condition until reconstruction is done. That is helping. So to that extent, a lot has been done. But what we need, so that we don't make the same mistake, is to do what other nations have done to create sustainability. That means whatever we've done has to be intentional. Nothing is accidental. You want to do roads, you say, okay, you want to prioritize. In fact, first of all, do and think audit. Prioritize the roads, because there are roads with high traffic. Because they have high traffic, the vulnerability of such roads are higher. People are likely to lose more lives on such roads than on other roads. So you start with the focus on them. Say this is what you do. You are starting from this point, you are ending here. And when you end, the maintenance starts almost immediately, because maintenance is like the human being, eating, bathing, and those are not things you do in the hospital. But it's when you allow yourself to go down that you go to the hospital. So the roads now in the hospital, if we are taking them out of the hospital, are we preparing them again for transfer to another hospital? Okay. So we should structure it. And structuring is not just by mouthing. There is a standard way of structuring. For instance, even the governance of the road sector, as it is now, is not appropriate for successful delivery and maintenance of our roads. It's not the governance system now is poor. It is obsolete, totally archaic, and nobody is even using that process again. We must therefore step back and do the right thing. That way we can keep our roads in the condition that we want them to be. Then what has this executive order number 5, that's one of the best things that this government did.
Just for a recap, just tell us briefly what it's all about. Some don't know
it is to put in the hands of professionals, and it cuts across all professionals, including even lawyers and technical professionals, to hand over the Nigeria to them. That's what Executive Order number 5 sought to do. For instance, one of the interesting part of it is, today, if there's supposed to be a design work, an engineering project, they want to maybe design the road from here to Calabar, we want to do one special road from here to Calabar, and even if you don't have the skills for it here, if you bring in a foreign partner, the foreign partner will be partner to the Nigerian partner, and the lead will be the Nigerian partner.
Is it working?
Not exactly yet, because this thing came in and some of these projects were already in incubation. But there are a few that we are trying to get them to comply. But how much success we have now, I need to check the records. But I know there is some kind of resistance because, again, we have poor governance system in the infrastructure sector. That is the challenge we have. Otherwise, that's the best thing that the government has done. It has also gone a step further also to strengthen current, to be able to also bring to book some of professionals and even non-professionals who decide to go off and do things differently. So the laws are there now, the policies are there, implementation is what we are focusing on. But it's still at infancy for us to say whether we have been successful or not. But we're quite excited.
Do you have cases where maybe some foreign companies are in violation of this Executive Order 5?
No, the foreign companies don't normally violate laws. That's the truth, even from way back, because they know back in their own country, those things can land them in jail. So when they come, they are often very careful. But they are emboldened by our own parasitic elites. They embolden them and give them cover. So after a while, they too become bold and they now begin to exploit. Ordinarily, when they come, they are always careful because they don't want to violate the rule. But we have gone a step further to also ensure that nothing happens. Because if they do anything, even here in Nigeria, we can also report them back. At least at the professional level, we can report them back in their own country and they could get punished. So the companies coming from abroad are not the problems. The problems are with those of us, the parasitic, what I like to quote parasitic elites or neo-colonialists, because these are opportunities who have had the opportunity of just being in government, and they think being in government confers knowledge and experience, and they just abuse their powers. So these are the issues. But gradually we'll overcome those ones and be able to deal with them.
Okay. Let's quickly take the remaining reports, then we go around our team of analysts tonight, or panelists, to give our final thoughts before we end the program tonight. Let's go to Anambra, Oka precisely.
The second Niger Bridge, which is one of the legacy projects in the southeast, has reached an advanced stage with assurances from site authorities that the project will be delivered September 2022.
When you look at the bridge, one lane, that's the Asaba bound, we've completed about 1.3 kilometer of the 1.6 kilometer length. Then on the other side, we have completed about 575 meters. Apart from the road, we have completed about 76% of the bridge, the main bridge.
I commend this administration because so far, all the past administration never do this one he has done.
The Buhari administration has also made great achievements in the reconstruction of a large portion of the Onitsha-Enugu Expressway, especially the Anambra State axis.
So here now, Toka, it's not even up to 20 minutes, so we are very happy.
The Onitsha River Port is one other major infrastructure in the southeast that has also received major attention by the Buhari administration. Authorities say with a little crossing of T's and dotting of I's, the port will become operational.
What it takes for port to swing into full operation, Onitsha River Port has it.
Specifically, I want to ask that the Anambra State government, the business community, the federal government, they should come together and do whatever they need to do to make the concessioning very, very fast, so that those that are waiting, because the market is there. The truth is that we have the markets. The business is here.
Zix Petroleum is yet another legacy project inherited and completed by the present administration after it was abandoned for years.
It's a very laudable project. The federal government have done well, especially the present regime. Since 16 years ago, this project started, but the present regime completed it and accomplished it.
Our next report is coming from Katsina.
The completion of Sabke and Zobadam projects in Meadwa and Dusama local government areas of Katsina State by the federal government are some of the achievements that have positive impacts on the economic prosperity of the predominantly farming communities around the areas. Agricultural sector has been enhanced for all year-round farming activities, thereby greatly reducing unemployment among the teeming youths.
We received assistance from the federal government to boost our farming activities.
We are now able to farm rice and other farm produce with ease.
I engage in both irrigation and dry season farming.
Meanwhile, the state government also came up with a restoration roadmap on assumption of office by Governor Aminu Bello Masari in the last 6 years, which assisted immensely in upholding the principles of accountability and inclusive governance that resulted in execution of various policies and programs in economic and social sectors. The performance are visible in the areas of education, healthcare, agriculture, environment, water supply, as well as youth and women empowerment initiatives.
Generally, we find that there is a sense of ownership by the citizens of the state. In this government, we have a very good, very good human capital development.
The government constructed a number of roads to link communities across the 34 local government areas of the state aimed at promoting socio-economic well-being of the people. The state government completed all inherited projects on the roads construction and embarked on new ones.
Projects that are about 70 in number, and this government will spend about 63 billion naira for their construction. And most of these projects have been completed.
To the beneficiaries of the various government programs, the impacts are many. For Mala Masaratu, the empowerment package she received enables her start a petty business of selling food to take care of the family after the death of her husband.
Last report tonight is coming from Jos.
Nigeria's democratic journey has been quite eventful, with each administration coming in with its programs and policies towards moving the nation forward. In the area of infrastructure development, Plateau State has benefited immensely as each of the 17 local government areas is a beneficiary of one project or the other. The ongoing construction of the Pangshin Balang Nyeleng Lere Gindri and Pangshin Tapshin Sara Gindri road networks have elicited so much excitement from the communities.
In terms of transporting some of our farm listing items, we find it very easy.
It is out of the poorest community today because of the road.
Now we see everything is moving fine.
It has opened up the area. It has also offered so many employment to the people of the community.
Also, the 44-kilometer Baban-Lamba to Sharam Road is so strategic that when completed, it will serve the people of Nasarawa, Gombe, Kaduna, and Adamawa states. Other projects include the Jos Inland Dry Port, 40 block of 9-unit bedroom flats in Plateau and Bauchi states, as well as electrification projects.
Create a lot of employment, like the one, especially the one you are here in High Palm, which is for Plateau, which represent the North Central Zone. It will create more than 20,000 workers.
We have been working together with the state government to acquire land for the phase 2.
One critical area of concern to the government is security, which is being accorded the needed attention.
Commandant General of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps has been able, immediately he came into office, he swung into action, and he has been able to create a female squad. And that female squad will be sent to vulnerable areas like schools, where kidnapping has been rampant. The Security and Civil Defense Corps will be sending men to farm areas to protect farmers.
Health and education are also areas of priority to the government, with the establishment of the Federal Polytechnic Shandam, as well as construction of health facilities across the state.
Jos is our last report tonight on the program, and we continue the discussion once again. We're looking at 6 years down the line, governance and development. Let's go to Susan quickly. Susan, there's a tweet here from Fabrizio directed at you. I don't know how you address this. It says, to the woman that just spoke now, she just used top-down approach trying to solve Nigeria's problems, which will not work. Nothing good can come out. Nothing. What's your reaction? Okay, I hear Susan is all about. That was the reaction from a Twitter before we go to maybe Kaduna. How do we react to that? That her reaction was top, bottom, which will not work. Is that possible?
No, okay.
Yeah, go ahead, yes.
I don't think that is what she meant. I shared her opinion that we have tried to put governance in the hands of the just federal government. Even Nigeria behaves as if the only government we have in Nigeria is the federal government. Nobody is talking about the state government. And in fact, the state governments, most of the state governments seem not to exist again. The governors seem to have handed over power to the federal government. That's what they tell their people. Not necessarily that they have done that physically, but they have told their people that everything is by the federal government. Today they are asleep. So whatever happens, she now said, when there's robbery in the state, they say federal government. When there's cultism, they say it's the federal government. How does federal government handle that? So there must, I share that opinion. It's like the governors, they are behaving as if we are in the federal, still a military government, where the head of state will have to give instructions. And if they want that, then they should transfer their powers and the money they are collecting to the federal government, so that the government will be managing their ministries for them. That is what I got, I think she said. Not that they said it should be bottom. It should be bottom top. That is what she was...
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, your reaction. I hope, Fabrizio, you're listening to reactions.
I align my views with you, sir, because she was saying, I think the question should have been the other way around. He is saying that the woman was talking from top bottom, And the Susan is talking about involving the bottom.
Yes.
I think that's what she's saying.
Yep.
But you see, the whole thing boils down to the flaws in the 1999 Constitution that tend to centralize the police system. And it says that the governors are chief security officers of their state. Yes, the Constitution says that. But then we know that the Commissioner of Police reports directly to the IG, who gives instruction. And so the governors are now trying to expose that aspect of the defect in the 1999 Constitution, that there's need for a re-engineering of that Constitution in such a way that the governors will be in charge and control of the State Commissioner of Police. And that is why, maybe it's a blackmail, but we all know that it's sort of...
You just want authority,
yes, just to cause a sort of re-engineering.
Okay.
And I think that in the federal system of government, their views appears to align with my own views too. Because in a federation, you have multi-tier police system. So there is need for a revisit to that constitution, particularly with regards to the police. And that's why you see the emergence of regional security outfit like Amotekun and I don't know what the East call their own now. Ebubeagu. You now have that one and so on and so forth. So you will continue to have that. And that is a sort of agitation. And we need to be sensitive to that aspect. That if you say that the governors are chief security officers of the state, then they should be chief security officers of the state. The commissioner of police should take orders from the governors. And even again, that leads to the issue of having state police, whether you should have state police or not. We should have state police because it's a federal system. We had it under the 1963 Constitution, and that's why some people are even asking us to revert to the 1963 Constitution. Before independence, we were having that. After independence, we had until 1966, under Decree 34, that we just have that centralized police system. And I think Nigeria needs to move. The security situation is becoming more complicated by the day, such that the 1999 Constitution cannot contain the kind of security outbursts we are having now. So somehow it is bottom up and top bottom. I think it is the collaboration of all the two ends that can guarantee peace in the country.
Let's go to Kaduna. Professor Mato, as much as we're winding down, let's look at executive, judiciary, and legislative relationship in the last 6 years. What's your assessment?
Let me start first of all by saying that Chief Ajayi has spoken for me. He has hit the nail on the head. I think, you see, one problem that Nigeria is a very phony federal system. And when people shout about structuring, one would ordinarily assume that they are talking about perhaps the distribution of power between the various levels of government. It's, in Nigeria that you have a federal government, that has so much powers, that is engaged in so many things that ordinarily the state and local government should be able to do. And like I keep saying, that may not be all related with the need that the fact that if you devolve any powers from the center to the states or local government, it will also mean that the 2 naira out of every 100 naira that the federal government takes will also have to be reduced. But the bottom line is that there is no way any state governor in this country, as it is currently constituted, will have the capacity to enforce law and order. We're a federal system that speaks about principally 2 levels of government. At the center and at the state level, we have the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. We have state courts. But these state courts, no matter what happens, and there, of course, should be offenses that are limited to states, and there should be federal offenses. I think what needs to be done, like Chief Ajayi rightly mentioned, is to tinker with the Constitution. There has been this apprehension on the part of political actors for a very long time, saying that if you allow state police to exist in Nigeria, that there is going to be some abuses or dictatorship on the part of the state governors. What are we having now? So we want the dictatorship to remain only at the center. The Commissioner of Police listens to the Inspector General of Police. He does not listen to the governor of any state. IG can tell him not to respond to any instruction that will come from the governor. So I think the way to go is to create state police side by side with the federal police. And we should be able to also come with institutional framework that will clearly delineate roles and responsibilities of the state and the federal police, existing side by side in our society. As Chief rightly said, in the First Republic, we had state police, we had regional police. At least I know of the Endocar system in northern Nigeria. I was young, but it really existed. And how did it exist side by side with the federal police? So we cannot approbate and reprobate at the same time. We cannot be claiming that we want restructuring on one hand, and then we are asking for centralization on the other hand. This issue of police and other civil security outfits, in my view, should be a function of both the federal and the state government. You have a federal police, but what do the state governments have now? The state governments have only informal security outfits that are not guaranteed to even carry weapons. How will they be able to enforce security or bring about, sanity in any community where you have crisis, using buttons or sticks? So that is the truth, and that is the way to go. I believe that one of the reasons why a lot of these, amendments to the Constitution have not seen the light of the day was attained by the National Assembly to carry it along and see it as exclusively a legislative function. I'm happy that I know the Deputy Speaker and the Deputy Senate of the President have agreed in principle that for any amendment to be carried out on these major issues in the Constitution, they will have to contact and consult with the Governors Forum so that everybody will be carried along on these critical issues. And then this again brings us back to that issue. The whole thing is attitude. If you don't deploy the right attitude to whatever institution or amendment you are making in the Constitution, then of course you'll be wasting your time. You have a state police, what's wrong with that? Operating side by side with the federal police. So I think the way to go, and in the heat of these national security challenges that we are facing, it is very important for us to wear our thinking caps and be more proactive and creative in coming up with ways and means of addressing these problems. These criminals are local. These criminals are local. There's something has not been done by the federal community policing, the idea of posting policemen and officers to their areas of origin, etc., etc. We need to take a stock and see whether all these initiatives have actually, resulted in anything positive or arresting, the level of insecurity that we face in our society. So I think the way to go is really for us to sit as a people and as a nation, look at the Constitution. I don't subscribe to the idea of amending the Constitution every now and then, even when you don't give it the minimal trial that it desires. You simply see a provision and you don't like it, and because you are privileged, and then you say, you begin to call for that amendment. But in this case, in the case of insecurity and many other functions that currently are being carried out by the federal government, I think it's very important. We need to devolve railways. We need to devolve, security stamp, duties, etc., etc. These are very critical issues that the state governments can handle at their level, and therefore the federal government will now have, unfettered access and time to be able to deal with very critical issues that are of common services to the rest of the federating units. Security is there, yes, in terms of national defense, foreign relations, currency, etc., etc. But if we insist that no, we don't want a state police because governors will abuse it, and then you leave it at the dictatorship of the Inspector General of Police or his DIGs or AIGs, then of course we'll continue to face the same crisis we are facing. So let's be very, focused about this. It is possible, it is resolvable, and it can be done.
Thank you so much, Professor Kabiru Matu. It was nice having you on Teaser Live tonight. And quickly, I hear Susan is up. Susan, well, we called you up. You were down, your signals were down. I just wish to say thank you so much for making time to be on the program. And Chief Michael Ajayi and Kashim build you out a tweet that was directed at you. Thanks so much for being on the program tonight. Back here, we're concluding. One thing we have to touch, we don't have the time to us in conclusion, the elite class towards governance and development in Nigeria, in conclusion.
Well,
let's challenge them.
Well, I think from my own view, I think that the national elites have not been patriotic enough. You know, these ethnic cleavages have continued to becloud their sense of patriotism, that nobody is really committed to the national ethos or national center. All of them are ethnic champions because the resources are scarce. And because resources are scarce, they employ ethnicity at every point to get advantage. And so I will say that they don't love what is called Nigeria. When you lose, you employ your ethnic background to fight for the national cake. So looking at the elite and national development, I think our elites have not been sincere because the resources of the country have been cornered by this elite. And if you read one of the newspapers of recent, AMCON is chasing about 307 Nigerians who were said to have controlled and mismanaged about 3 trillion naira. 307 Nigerians are having in their possession 3 trillion naira from 6.3 trillion that they couldn't pay back. So in any country where you have a national elite that has access to such huge funds, you expect them to invest that huge fund to create employment. But unfortunately, these monies have found their ways back to foreign countries where they have laundered this money. Industries are not created. They are not investing in farms, in agriculture, in other manufacturing, and so on and so forth. So the elite in Nigeria is a big disappointment, and they are not good role models for the young ones.
Okay. Should we give up hope?
No, certainly not. Certainly not, because we have to beat them to shape. We at least have to separate governance from politics. That seems to be what we are doing now. Even if we want to look at it deeply, even some of these bandits we are talking about, it will appear that the parasitic elites are the ones funding non-state actors to take on the system. So we need to love our country a bit more, just a little more, and then we could get out of it. Because when there is development, everybody benefits. But if you do development only within your own locality, when you come out of your environment, what happens? So that is the essence of development. And the reason we are not a developed country today is because we have not developed our infrastructure. Because if the difference between us and other countries is that we don't have infrastructure. So if we invest in infrastructure, we invest in the people. Because nothing employs more than public works. And so if we pay more attention and do the work more patriotically, certainly our country will be a great one.
Thank you so much, Engineer Kashim Ali, and also Chief Michael Ajayi. It was nice, good time to be on the program tonight.
Thank you.
And also to our viewers, it was nice sharing your time with you. Thanks for your tweets. And know very well that as much as there's a social contract between government and the people also have a role to play. Mr. President has said the people should be understanding, and together, Nigeria will be a better place. On behalf of all of us tonight, we looked at 6 years down the line, governance and development in Nigeria. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to support the NTA in the onslaught against rape and rapists to be a star. Bye-bye.